Good evening, everyone. Great to have you back. On this week's show, in our Four Down segment, we're talking about Adrian Peterson. Is it time for the Minnesota Vikings to move on? We're joined by Peter Yiannopoulos. He's a TV analyst for RDS and NCAA basketball. And on our Pretender Contender segment, we're talking about Aaron Rodgers. Should he be considered as an MVP? I also face off against ex-Canadian international soccer player Sandra Brandy. We invite you, as always, to join us on our social networks at facebook.com/RBTL Sports, as well as on Twitter at RBTL Sports. It's happening right now, right here. It's time to read between the lines. Safe to say Adrian Peterson will be reinstated. However, this week on our Four Down segment, we discuss if the Minnesota Vikings should move on. As always, we invite you to join us on our social networks at facebook.com/RBTL Sports, as well as on Twitter at RBTL Sports. This week, we welcome Peter Yiannopoulos. You're the TV analyst for NCAA basketball on RDS. Great to have you. I look forward to your opinions.
Excited to be here, guys. Thank you.
To his right is Anthony Cornelli, RBTL contributor and my co-host. Great to see you. And last but not least, David Hurley, great to see you as well. You're one of my co-hosts. We're going to have you on. Look forward to your opinions. Well, I see you're sporting a little bit of a Mr. Rogers look going on.
Yeah,
here
it's
today.
a beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yeah, well, it's not a nice day in the neighborhood. If you're a Minnesota Vikings fan, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of purple pain, as they say in Minnesota. It's a tough time, and there's a lot of questions to be asked about the organization. So I throw that question out there. Should the Vikings move on?
From Adrian Peterson, it's going to be tough for them to move on from Adrian Peterson. I mean, the guy's been in the league 8 years. This is one of the suspension years, and the other one was when he tore his knee. Yeah. But other than that, he's a 6-time Pro Bowler. He's rushed for over 2,000 yards in a season. The ultimate decision will become on sponsorship and really to see if their morale is up, if they want to cut him. But I think they should definitely keep him. He's a great piece to their offense.
I think there's also, if you take a look at football personnel, though, right? They want to keep him.
Absolutely.
The coaches want to keep him. The players want, obviously in the clubhouse, they want to keep him, right? The question is, what sort of impact does it have on the organization? Where does the moral compass lie, right? Where is enough at this point with regards to Adrian Peterson? If it's not this, then what's it going to take for them to, especially if we talk about basketball? If I link it over to basketball, how do they treat this case with Adrian Peterson if this was basketball, if this was the NBA?
Again, it's difficult, guys, because when we're talking about a body of work of what Adrian Peterson can do on the field, there's no question he's an elite player, probably one of the best running backs, if not the best running back that we've seen in the NFL in the last 10 years. However, there's something here, you talk about morals, we're talking about children here. And I've been a big proponent in terms of professional sports. We're not here to give moral lessons. But when we talk about children and kids, we have to draw the line.
But are you not supposed to be held to a higher standard with regards to your off-field activities? I mean, where does that lie? Just because you're sports entertainment, right? I was reading recently, 26 out of the most watched TV programs in the fall were NFL games. They have a huge pull and a huge influence on moral, the moral compass. So is there not a requirement from them to be able to step up that way on the off-field?
There's no question, Adam. I mean, you're talking about an individual here that has been charged with abusing his own children, right? We had his child last year died. He decided to play the game anyways, right? So I think there's no remorse from Adrian Peterson right now. He's in court. We're talking about some marijuana issues. When is he going to stop?
Absolutely.
Right? I think if I'm the owner of the Minnesota Vikings, we've seen that the corporate sponsorships have gone the other way.
Yep.
You know what? Make the decision. The kid McKinnon is doing a decent job, and let's make no mistake about it. We all know football here. Running backs are predicated on what? Offensive linemen.
Exactly.
If you have a good offensive line, you'll have a good running back.
For sure.
I think they should cut Adrian Peterson and move on.
I believe he's learned nothing from this situation. He's shown no remorse. He's on the commissioner exempt list, which means he's sitting at home and still getting paid. Yeah. That's a joke, gentlemen. I mean, the guy, recent reports have said that he hasn't been training. He's not in game shape. The only thing he's been lifting is his brass bong. And to add to that, he has a court mandate saying that he has to have a marijuana analyst every month. Guys, gentlemen, like the circus is in town. It's starring AP, Roger Goodell, and the Vikings.
Yeah.
Just cut him already.
But in all fairness, though, if we talk about corporate sponsorship, right? So the Radisson Hotel's pulled out. Pepsi moved in real quick on that backdrop for press conferences. So I wouldn't be necessarily too worried about the corporate sponsorship. The thing is that there's definitely a divide at the upper management, right? Football personnel wants to keep him. it almost feels like there's a double-edged sword because they're trying to get the league to do the dirty work, right? They're trying to get them to discipline him rather than have the organization make a decision. The question is what example are you setting forth?
Yeah,
right?
but
What example are you setting forth if you're not able to discipline a player of that? And if you don't believe that it should be a moral compass, if you don't believe that the team should be that, then who is? Who's the one that should be?
The onus should be on the player, but at the end of the day, it's the NFL, and it's a little bit of a joke when they come down on players. Look at Dante Stallworth in 2009. He killed someone in a DUI. He had manslaughter charges, but what happened? The guy a year later was back in the NFL playing for Baltimore. That's a little bit of a joke. Now you're talking about a guy punishing his own children with a, talent like Adrian Peterson doesn't fall off the tree. But, I mean, he took that tree branch and he hit his son and he punished him too hard. Now, could he be able to take the next step in his career? I know you've been saying that he doesn't have the quality of a human being to do it.
So for you, it's all about on field.
It's all about on field. It's the NFL. That's how they get paid. They want to watch players do very well. And Minnesota Vikings are, what, 4-5 right now?
The facts are the NFL is a business. The Minnesota Vikings are a company. They're not going to pick up his $13 million contract next year. He's past his prime. He's already voiced interest of playing for the Cowboys. The only thing the Minnesota Vikings can do if they pick up his contract, they're not only dropping $13 million, they're dropping corporate sponsorships and a million adoring fans who disagree with the fact that Adrian Peterson should still be playing for Minnesota.
I don't know. Like, I'm not worried about the corporate side of things, right? I'm not worried about the fans because they're in a predicament, right? Because they're going to lose half their fan base regardless. If you accept him, I don't mean lose a fan base. I mean you're going to alienate or polarize your fan base. What I mean by that is you take him back to the team and you alienate half that player base that thinks he should suffer more consequences. If you don't put him back, you're saying, look, you're obviously enforcing too hard. So if the person's job is not on the line, it almost feels like if it's not directly them that are losing their job or involved in it, then they want this to happen. They want bigger changes to be brought on, especially with Adrian Peterson. They want to make him an example. Is this not a good opportunity for the league to be able to say?
It's one thing, guys, when you have a DUI, right? Or you're on an assault charge, or you break the law. But we're talking about children, young, innocent children. Did you see those lacerations on that poor, innocent baby, right? It's a baby.
But that's not enough for you, though.
No, it's not enough for me because North America loves a redemption story. So the guy can come back and rush for 1,800 yards. He'll still be a fan favorite yet again.
Let me ask you a question. With the Minnesota Vikings, have they ever been to a Super Bowl with Adrian Peterson?
No, they haven't.
Right? He's great. He's a great running back. He puts up yardage. But have they ever won with him?
No.
Right? So maybe this is the time
to let him go.
They let him go, start fresh, and you know what? Let's focus on doing the right thing as an organization. Let's get some players who want to do the right thing on and off the field. And I think it's proven that you had some players. Look at this guy McKinnon, right? 5 yards per carry. He's doing the job. I think that they're still in the race. They're about a couple of games out of first place. Let's move on from this situation. Forget Adrian Peterson. He needs help. He needs to be out of the league. We can't have a league full of players who beat up on innocent children. I'm sorry, gentlemen.
Well, we'll also move on as we're switching gears. Stay right there. Love the energy you guys are bringing. Love it. We're going to be talking about our Pretender Contender segment. We're changing gears a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and what he did last week. Stay with us. Our Pretender Contender segment is up next. You don't want to miss it. Did you forget about Aaron Rodgers? We haven't. And with last week's 6 TD performance in the first half, safe to say he's now in the conversation for the league's MVP. And no, I'm not talking about the most valuable photobomber. We welcome back this man right here, David Hurley. Great to have you.
Glad to be here.
To his right is Pierre Anopoulos. Great to welcome you back.
It was a pleasure.
And we welcome to the show, Pierre Evans. Just great to see you. Gentlemen, Pretender or Contender, Aaron Rodgers, MVP. He's done some incredible things in his career. He's won it before. Is it too early to tell that he'll be the MVP this season? Do you think he's a pretender or a contender? I'll start with you, David.
I think he's a pretender, to be honest. I mean, look, he's played against Detroit, he's played against Seattle, and he's played against New Orleans, and he's lost both those games, or all three of those games. He hasn't really stood out. He's beat up on the Bears. I mean, he's got close to 10 touchdowns in the last 2 games against the Bears, but he doesn't really beat up on a good defensive team. So I think he's a pretender, and I see him being in the top 3, but he's not going to win the MVP this year.
Personally, I think he's definitely a contender. You just see what his body of work is. Not only when he steps onto the field, he gives the team an opportunity to win. He has that championship pedigree. And if you look at his statistics right now, you're talking about 25 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions. The only guy who has that as well, with 3 interceptions, is Tom Brady. I think that what he brings to the table is an element that he could dominate a game. Obviously, it's still early in the season, but the Green Bay Packers, and with all due respect to the Arizona Cardinals, I think that, and the Philadelphia Eagles, and I love my Dallas Cowboys, but I think
That's a Cowboys.
But at the end of the day, I think that with Seattle, who's struggling, I think that Green Bay are the favorites to come out of the NFC this year, and it's the sole reason is Aaron Rodgers.
I disagree. I think definitely pretender. You look at some of the guys who are playing really well right now, including Andrew Luck.
Andrew Luck.
I mean, he's playing incredibly well. And again, you know, the thing about the MVP is we're talking about that right now, right? And it's a long season. Even though we're on
midway.
week 10, we're moving on, we're midway.
We're not at the end of the season.
But there's still a lot of football to be played, and a Aaron Rodgers in good shape is scary.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He's an incredible quarterback.
You mentioned Andrew Luck. I'm looking at Aaron Rodgers, a guy that's done it before. Andrew Luck, second or third year. I have Aaron Rodgers. He's comfortable. You know that with him, you always have a chance to win. The team has done it before. They won a Super Bowl a couple of years back. I just feel like he's, bottom line, the best quarterback.
Well, we're not debating that he's a bad quarterback or a good one. He's definitely a great quarterback. But I think right now it's definitely Andrew Luck's to lose. He's got 500 yards more in passing.
Yeah, but
he's got one more touchdown.
9 interceptions.
He has 8 interceptions, but he also has 130 yards rushing and 2 TDs rushing, which is pretty impressive for a third-year quarterback in the league. He's starting to read defenses. Like Peyton Manning does, and I don't like Peyton Manning, and I think we're all agree on. We've heard
there's a little dab there.
He's definitely reading defenses and giving his team in Indianapolis a chance to win game in, game out, and he's going deep, and he's going deep a lot. T.Y. Hilton leading the league in receiving.
I'd be curious to ask you or any of you that when you already win it, right? So you've already been there to uncharted territory. When it comes to the ballot box and these MVP or prior MVP winners have another great season, do you think that leads them in a favor? It gives them any kind of edge with regards to them winning it for a second time? It's almost as if you win it once, you can win it numerous times.
The body of work counts for something.
Absolutely.
Well, I'm the basketball guy, so I'll bring a basketball analogy, right? Steve Nash, right? He won it the first time. Voters were enamored with him. They loved Steve Nash. That second year, he won it over Shaquille O'Neal. A lot of people will say, well, Shaq was the most dominant player probably of all time. He had the better season, but voters, it's tricky of who's voting, right? Is it the players? It's not. It's a lot of the voters. So we talk about Peyton Manning, right? He won the award last year. You talk about MVP. He's the guy. Take Peyton Manning away from Denver. What happens? You look at Tim Tebow, right? Right? Tim Tebow brought Denver to a division championship, won a playoff game with that same core, with that same team, right? You take him out, they still did it. Take away Aaron Rodgers from the Green Bay Packers.
Exactly.
But then if we use that analogy, then take away Brady from the Patriots, and it's like
going to be tough.
It's going
to be tough, but it's like you mentioned, it's the valuable in terms of being valuable right now. For Aaron Rodgers, if you take him off his team's going to drop off way more than the Patriots would or the Colts would.
But doesn't that supplement?
And it supplement to that the division that they play in. I think there's no denying that the AFC South is a way worse division than in the NFC North at the moment.
Yes,
at the moment, you take a look at Detroit and the Packers. They have to fight head to head. I'm not exactly sure.
I really like Detroit
playing in that NFC, and Aaron Rodgers has proved it, right? When he won the Super Bowl, when he won that Super Bowl, he had to win 3 games on the road as a wild card, and he did that. To me, obviously, Brady and Payne are always there, but you're looking at a guy in his prime right now who's won the award before. Yeah. He is the most dominant quarterback in the NFL right now. And with all due respect to Andrew Luck, we got to see a little bit more from him. Yeah. But 25 touchdowns and only 3 interceptions, 68% completion rate. That to me says that he's the number one guy.
It kind of goes to the defenses that they played. They've played not the best defenses. The 3 games he's played against, well, 2 games he's played against good defenses in Seattle and in Detroit, he's lost. And if he's lost to those guys, what's he going to do in the future when he plays Detroit again, which is probably the team that's going to win the NFC?
But be honest, in terms of a guy that's done it before, you know that Aaron Rodgers has done it before. If you take both guys, Andrew Luck and Aaron Rodgers, you know for a fact that he can take you to the promised land. Can you say the same for Andrew Luck? I'm not exactly sure.
One thing that I do know, it was great to have you on the show. Congratulations on all your success. Great to have you. We look forward to having you back. For those who might not know you or know what you do, where can they catch you and some of the stuff that you're involved with?
Well, we're starting our 3rd season with RDS Basketball, NCAA, where our first game will be on December 9th. So I'll be a TV insider and the TV analyst once again, heading into the March Madness. Obviously still working on TSN Radio as the NBA insider. The Raptors are doing good, guys. First place in the Eastern Conference. But we're busy doing those 2 things, and I'll love to come back on your show. Absolutely, guys.
Great to see you. Thanks for doing this. Stay with us. The Spread is up next. Welcome to The Spread as we preview some of the key matchups in the world of professional sports. As always, we want to hear from you. Do you agree? Disagree? We welcome back RBTL contributor Pierre Evans-Just, Anthony Cornelli, David Hurley. Great to have you gentlemen back. All right, what do we got?
We got Toronto against Chicago. Toronto playing at home. First big matchup of the season. Derrick Rose with the iffy ankles. Joakim Noah, not sure if he's going to play. Interesting game.
Big matchup.
Big matchup.
Professional hockey.
I got Montreal at home against the Bruins. Bruins have an all-time losing record in Montreal. Goes to the form. They're in the rafters at the Bell Center. It's going to be a tough one for the Bruins.
David Hurley, 5-4, 5-4.
It's going to be a big matchup in the AFC East, and I really like the Miami Dolphins at home. It's a 4.5-point spread. I think they should be doing well, and we'll see how that goes. And I mean, if we're going to recap and see how it's going to go, I really like for all those gamblers out there, really think about putting your money. I know you lost a lot on the Steelers and the Jets. Put your money on the Dolphins this week. You'll make your money back, cover the 5 points.
Having said that, I'll start first. I've got Miami to cover the spread 4.5. I've got Montreal to win at home. And the T-Dot will prevail, so I've got Toronto win that game. David.
So we got the Dolphins, I got the Habs, and I really, really like T.O. to win that game. We the North are going to come out on top.
Two teams, similar record. Going into Miami, I got the Dolphins to cover. Obviously, I got the Canadiens to win at home. And I don't think the Raptors have really played anybody. Chicago's strong. They're going to take it in Toronto.
Statement right there. Okay.
So I got Miami to cover the spread. I got the Habs to win at home. And I want to know my Chicago faithful. It's not personal, strictly business. Toronto takes it.
Oh, big statement.
Wow.
Don't get mad at me. It's strictly business.
Bulls
Michael Corleone style.
Yeah. There it is. You heard it here first. You agree, disagree, want to hear from you, share your opinions, your feedback. Stay with us as my face-off segment with Canadian international soccer player Sandra Brandy is up next. Don't go anywhere.
Serio. This is Simpson. Simpson's cross, deflected. There's a shot by Grundy, scores! What a shot by Sandra Brandy!
One of the greatest goals ever scored in Canadian soccer history, and it was scored by the man that I'm about to face off against. Sandra Brandy, welcome to the show. Great to have you.
Great to be here.
Sandro, you obviously missed the boat with regards to MLS. I have so much to talk to you about. First, your impressions of MLS and how much you would have liked to play in the MLS.
Definitely, I would have loved to play here. I mean, in Montreal, in your own city, a pretty good league. My impressions, it's still evolving. I mean, it's not at the world stage just yet. You know, obviously, they've got this English flair to it where it's back and forth and back and forth. It's not always the most pleasant football to be watching, but it makes for some exciting games.
Are you pleased with the progress they've made, though, over the last couple of years? That
Oh,
you've
definitely.
seen? Yeah.
Definitely, yeah.
Headed in the right direction?
Bringing in, you know, key South American players that don't make that much money, that in this league can do a real good job. I think that's going to be the key to this league. Going to get those additions like Thierry Henry and David Beckham and Robbie Keane. I mean, those guys are going to bring the level higher. But the purpose of the league is to grow talent in North America, and you can see that's happening slowly.
We won't shy away from it. We'll get into the nitty and gritty. A lot of people are curious to know about the Biello incident. It's so funny because you see the difference between an incident that just happened recently versus yours. Almost felt like because of the picture, you know, you had mentioned it off camera, there was, you know, frozen in time. Talk to us about that moment, kind of replay it and how that all, you know, blew up and how you took it.
Look, I mean, if I remember correctly, during that season, we were struggling. We lost a few games in a row. The team wasn't doing well. You know, tempers were boiling in the dressing room at times, in practices and sessions. Mm-hmm. So it was just, you know, an accumulation of things. Me and Mauro are roommates. We were roommates. We were very good friends. So, I mean, what happened on the field was just, you know, two athletes going at it. I mean,
sure. That happens all the time.
It happens all the time. I mean, I saw it with Aaron Robin and Thomas Mueller. This year, Marco Di Vaio and Felipe, it happened in one of the sessions. So, I mean, these things happen. I mean, it happened the other day with, if I'm not mistaken, Piki Subban and Galchenyuk in sessions. So, these kind of things happen all the time. It's just that...
Do you feel that you were unfairly targeted for that? Do you feel that the treatment that you received and the backlash you received for that was unfair? Do you think that if the team was winning at that time, you'd still...
I've told many people this. I said, if that would have happened in Europe, nothing would have happened.
Really?
You know? Yeah, because I mean, in Europe, there's a different mentality. Here in Canada, I mean, you know, everything is so nice and polite, you know, and so, you know, people seem to get offended really quickly. In Europe, it's like, okay, you know what, they're human beings, and today I'll tell you something, and tomorrow we'll see each other and we'll still have a coffee together. You know,
we see the positive side of playing for Montreal. Is Montreal a tough place to play?
For myself, no, it wasn't at all. I mean, when I came here, the management, Nick and Joey and Nick Filipponi that was here, they had told me, "Oh, you're going to see it's so tough to play in Montreal." But I've played in
the pressure because of the media, or
yeah, because the pressure, the fans, but you know what? You play your game, you win, you lose.
That's
you
it.
walk out of the stadium, nobody's waiting for you. I've played in places where, in Brescia, for example, we were on a little bit of a losing streak, and there was like 500 tifosi, 500 ultras that were waiting for us at the door, and our team couldn't leave the dressing room. I was in the stands. I went down to the dressing room after the game, and here we find ourselves with like meeting with the head ultra of the club, which should have no say in any technical issues or tactical issues, but they just wanted to meet the club because they feel like they're so much a big part of the club that they need to have their input as well. You know?
John Lemiaz was on recently on a Face-Off segment. He talked about the pressure of upper management and how difficult it is for a coach and how much involvement there is. Do you appreciate that from management? Do you appreciate a hands-on environment from management to say, you know what, we also want to supplement the coach, we also want to maybe overstep the coach sometimes? Is that the kind of environment you like playing in?
I don't know. I think my mentality, if I would be in that position, is like I need to be hiring the best guy for the job. And if I hire the best guy for the job, I need to let him do what he needs to do. If I'm constantly stepping over his feet, then I can just hire anybody and just constantly be right behind his back. If I go and get the best coach out there and I feel that, you know what, this guy's going to be, it's normal in the season, there's going to be talks with management, there's going to be the coach coming up to the president's office to have a chat. We see it with AC Milan and Berlusconi very, very often.
Yeah.
But most
does he come down to the locker room often? Does Saputo come down quite a bit and have conversations with you guys in the locker room? And
yeah, you know what, like for that, yeah. But I mean, it was never anything like menacing.
Player personality.
It was you know, like good stuff. I mean, it's normal. You know, sometimes people see you know, like he comes on the field, you know, when they win, and then when they lose, he's not on the field. So people tend to think, okay, now he's the wrong impression, stuff, you know. So, but yeah, he would come down often. I mean, with regards to technically and tactically speaking, he would never really put a word to us. Maybe with, you know, in behind closed doors with the coaches, with the coaching staff, with John and Mark and now maybe you know, Schaldebaum. There was a bit of a conflict. You know?
With his acquisition of Bologna and seeing how his influence of you know, Italian players coming to Montreal, do you think that Montreal needs to stray away from that, to maybe focus on diversity with regards to the talent? You see some of the other teams in the MLS seeing so much success with South American players, European players. Do you think that's a little bit different?
There's a couple of countries in South America where you can go. Look, I mean, the top league in Ecuador has very, very good players. The top league in Peru and even in Argentina, you know, I mean, and these guys don't make that much money in these kind of countries, you know.
So tapping into that would be...
Yeah, you can easily go get a Piatti, you know. Obviously, Piatti is a little bit more high profile, but you can go get some guys that can make a difference for you. The guys that Vancouver went to get this year, Morales and the other couple of forwards that they got. I mean, those are guys that, you know, come from small countries and
don't cost you much.
Don't cost you much. You know, they're second-tier guys. Now, are you still going to go to Italy and get your superstar and hopefully get a Thierry Henry and Robbie Keane? Look, I saw Robbie Keane last night in the game. He was unbelievable. I mean, nobody in the MLS can play like Robbie Keane or Thierry Henry because we just don't have the talent here. We're not at that level yet, you know, in North America. So these guys are good for the league. David Beckham was great for the league. Marco Di Vaio was outstanding for Montreal. It's normal, we have an Italian community. They want to bring in an Italian, but there are countries in Europe, Serbia, Croatia, Bulgaria. You go to Romania, there are some big players. And sometimes even in the second and third division in Italy, there are very, very good players.
Before we let you go, we're going to have a little bit of fun with you. As always, I have a little segment that's called the Rapid Fire segment. So I'm going to ask you a few questions. Yeah. Give me your first impression, one-word answer, two-word answers, of what comes to mind. All right, so first things first, was Mauro Biello the best captain in Impact history?
It's the only captain I had. Before that, it was Nick. I'm not sure.
No comment?
No comment.
Best player you've ever played with?
Roberto Baggio.
You've played for many teams across the world. Which team is the closest to your heart?
I would say Frosinone.
Will MLS ever compete with major European leagues at the rate that they're going right now?
One day, yeah.
Does Canada stand a chance of qualifying for the World Cup in their future? Do you see that happening?
Hopefully.
You do? Great to see you. Thanks for taking the time, Sandra.
Thank you.
Stay with us. My rant is up next. You don't want to miss it. For the first time ever, college football will determine its national championship competitors with a 4-team playoff-style bracket. Gone are the ever-controversial coaches and media polls, replaced by a panel of 13 experts who will rank the teams instead. Now, I don't know how a panel of 13 people given the status of experts is better than the opinion of coaches themselves. Who else is closer than the action and more involved with all of it? Coaches evaluate based on competitiveness, talent, and the ability, not which matchups produce the biggest profits. The reason for this, and we don't have to look back very far for the perfect example, to the 2012 national championship game between number 2 ranked Notre Dame and number 1 ranked Alabama. It's because the Irish got embarrassed in front of their national audience, in a game that was remembered more for the unveiling of then Alabama quarterback A.J. McCarron's girlfriend and former Miss Alabama than the actual football game. Before you know it, we'll be hearing coaches saying, we're just looking for a berth into the semis, and from then on, anything's possible. And it will be just as much of a crapshoot as it's always been. By pledging a better product, the NCAA continues to find new ways to increase their profits, while shamelessly disciplining their athletes for trying to grab a couple of bucks. Once again, the public is put in a position to support an educational organization whose goals claim to be to prepare these young men for their futures. But for many, the future is now. We invite you to join us on our social networks at facebook.com/RBTL Sports, as well as on Twitter @RBTL Sports. Until next time, on behalf of the entire team, thanks for being with us.
Adam Reid's wardrobe is provided by Carve Clothing, available at carve.ca. Salon services courtesy of Glam Atelier, La Maison de Beauté. Catering services provided by Season Dreams by J. Anthony.